Imagine a world where proof doesn't exist for the things that matter most: love, hope, God, meaning. William James looked at that world and asked, what if we don't need proof to believe? What if the act of believing is what makes life worth living? His answer became the most powerful idea in philosophy: the right to believe even when evidence is uncertain. If that belief helps you live better, love deeper, and fight harder. Tonight, in part 22, how he gave people permission to believe when everything seemed hopeless. The psychology behind faith that still saves lives from despair. And why this idea is the secret weapon against modern anxiety. Stay until the end, because what he said about choosing your beliefs will change how you face tomorrow. During this period, William James continued to expand his work on pragmatism, religion, and ethics, emphasizing the practical consequences of belief and thought. He believed that ideas are valuable when they guide action, promote well-being, and help individuals navigate uncertainty. James emphasized that human experience is complex, and understanding it requires attention to consciousness, habit, emotion, social influences, and the effects of beliefs on life. His approach integrated psychology, philosophy, and practical ethics into a unified framework. One of his key interests was the psychology of belief. James explored how people come to hold convictions and why certain beliefs endure even in the absence of empirical proof. He argued that belief is not merely a matter of rational calculation but is deeply intertwined with emotion, habit, and social influence. People adopt beliefs that resonate with their experiences, provide meaning, or support practical action. By examining belief from both psychological and philosophical perspectives, James showed how conviction shapes perception, guides decision-making, and influences moral behavior. Religion and spiritual experience remained central to his work. William James studied the effects of faith, prayer, and mystical experiences on human life. He emphasized the personal, experiential nature of religious life rather than institutional or doctrinal aspects. James believed that authentic religious experience could inspire courage, moral development, and practical action. He explored cases of religious conversion, mystical insight, and profound emotional experiences, demonstrating that these phenomena have measurable effects on consciousness, emotion, and behavior. Religion, in James's view, provides a source of guidance, motivation, and meaning in human life. Consciousness continued to be a core focus. James emphasized that religious, moral, and philosophical experiences are part of the continuous flow of consciousness. Attention, memory, and habit shape these experiences, while emotion and belief guide interpretation and action. Human consciousness is purposive. It is shaped by practical concerns, moral choices, and personal aspirations. By linking consciousness to habit, emotion, and social context, James provided a framework for understanding how people experience meaning, make decisions, and act in complex environments. Habit remained a guiding principle in his ethical and psychological work. James argued that moral and intellectual habits influence character, decision-making, and life outcomes. Developing beneficial habits requires conscious effort, repetition, and reflection. Just as habits shape behavior in daily life, ethical habits form the foundation of moral character. Attention to habit formation allows individuals to cultivate virtues, sustain focus on important goals, and respond effectively to social and personal challenges. Habit, in James's philosophy, connects psychological understanding with ethical practice. Emotion played a crucial role in his study of human experience. James emphasized that emotions are integrated with cognition, attention, and belief. They shape perception, influence moral judgments, and motivate action. Understanding emotion is essential for understanding human life, guiding ethical behavior and fostering personal growth. By integrating emotional experience with attention, habit, and social observation, James created a holistic model of human motivation that explains both behavior and moral decision-making. Social observation remained central to his work. James studied the influence of culture, education, and social norms on belief, habit, and ethical development. He observed how social pressures, authority, and peer influence shape perception, decision-making, and moral behavior. He argued that understanding social dynamics is essential for applying psychological and philosophical insights in education, moral guidance, and personal growth. James's approach highlights the interaction between individual disposition and social context, emphasizing that human behavior is both personal and relational. Pragmatism provided a unifying framework for his later work. James emphasized that ideas and beliefs should be evaluated based on their consequences for human life. A belief that inspires action, improves well-being, or guides ethical conduct is meaningful and valuable. Pragmatism bridges theory and practice, showing that philosophical inquiry has direct implications for everyday living. James applied pragmatism to religion, ethics, education, and psychology, reinforcing his commitment to practical relevance and the integration of thought with life. By the end of this stage, William James had developed a mature understanding of the connections between psychology, philosophy, religion, and ethics. Consciousness, habit, emotion, social observation, and practical application were fully integrated into his approach. Chapter 5 emphasizes his work on belief, moral development, religious experience, and pragmatism, showing how his insights into human thought, feeling, and action informed both theory and practical life. This stage demonstrates the continuity of James's intellectual vision, linking his early psychological studies to his later philosophical and ethical contributions. By this stage in his life, William James had fully embraced a vision of philosophy and psychology that emphasized practical consequences, personal growth, and moral development. He was interested in how ideas, beliefs, and experiences shape human behavior, consciousness, and social life. His later work reflected a commitment to understanding the mind in its full complexity, integrating psychology, philosophy, religion, and ethics into a coherent and meaningful framework. One of the central themes of this period was the study of human belief. James examined why people hold certain convictions and how these beliefs affect their actions and experiences. He emphasized that belief is influenced not only by reason but also by emotion, habit, and social context. People adopt beliefs that provide meaning, guide action, or improve life. This understanding connected his work in psychology to philosophy, showing that beliefs are both personal and practical, shaping how individuals interact with the world. Religion and spiritual experience remained a major focus. William James was particularly interested in the personal, subjective aspects of religious life. He studied religious conversion, mystical experiences, and moments of profound insight, aiming to understand their psychological and ethical significance. He argued that genuine religious experience can inspire moral growth, courage, and practical action. By focusing on the effects of religion on consciousness, emotion, and behavior, James provided a framework for understanding faith as a psychological and ethical phenomenon, rather than a purely doctrinal or institutional one. Consciousness was central to his understanding of religious, moral, and philosophical experience. James emphasized that experiences of insight, inspiration, or moral decision-making are part of the continuous flow of consciousness. Attention, memory, emotion, and habit shape these experiences, while belief and expectation guide interpretation. Human consciousness, he argued, is not merely reflective. It is purposive, directed by practical concerns, moral choices, and personal goals. By examining consciousness in this way, James connected his earlier psychological studies with his later philosophical and religious inquiries. Habit remained a key concept. James explored how both intellectual and ethical habits influence character, decision-making, and life outcomes. Just as repeated behaviors shape practical efficiency, repeated moral practices shape ethical sensibility. Conscious effort, reflection, and repeated practice are required to cultivate habits that foster personal and moral development. Through habit, psychology connects directly to ethics, demonstrating how understanding human behavior can guide practical living and moral improvement. Emotion continued to play a central role. James emphasized that emotional experience is intertwined with cognition, attention, and belief. Emotions shape perception, influence moral judgment, and motivate action. Understanding the emotional dimension of human life is essential for ethical development, personal growth, and practical decision-making. By integrating emotion with consciousness, habit, and social observation, James provided a comprehensive framework for understanding motivation, behavior, and moral choice. Social observation remained essential. James studied the influence of education, cultural norms, and social expectations on thought, belief, habit, and moral development. He observed how individuals respond to authority, peer influence, and social pressures. These studies demonstrated that human behavior emerges from the interaction of personal disposition, habit, and social context. Understanding social dynamics is crucial for applying psychological and philosophical insights in education, ethical guidance, and everyday life. Pragmatism continued to serve as a unifying principle. James emphasized that ideas and beliefs should be judged by their practical consequences. Beliefs that inspire action, improve life, or foster moral development are meaningful and valuable. Pragmatism bridges theory and practice, showing that philosophical inquiry must have real-world relevance. James applied this principle to psychology, religion, ethics, and education, reinforcing his commitment to knowledge that informs action and guides human development. By the end of this stage, William James had created a holistic vision of human experience, integrating consciousness, habit, emotion, social observation, philosophy, and practical application. Chapter 5 highlights his mature work on belief, moral development, religious experience, and pragmatism, illustrating how his insights connected psychology, philosophy, and ethics. This stage demonstrates the full flowering of James's intellectual vision, showing how theory and practice, thought and action, can be united to guide meaningful human life. William James's right to believe became the most controversial idea in philosophy. Some called it dangerous. Others said it was the only honest way to live. In Part 23, you'll discover the forbidden drug experiments that proved his theory, the secret crisis that almost ended his career, and the one book that made atheists pray and believers love science. Part 23 tomorrow, 8 p.m. sharp. Subscribe plus bell on. The deepest part is coming.